Night had fallen on April 15, 1912, and while many of the patrons aboard the Titanic were enjoying the grandeur of the largest and most luxurious ship in the world, the crew were receiving warnings over the radio of the dangers they faced. Though that had also been the case through much of the voyage up to that point, the radio operators on the ship were receiving warnings of icebergs in the surrounding waters, most of which the operators passed on to the bridge. But when, at approximately 9:40 p.m., a warning of an ice field came in, no notice was relayed to the bridge. Even when a nearby ship, the Californian, sent a message that they had to stop sailing due to becoming surrounded by ice, no warning was given. Instead, an operator scolded the Californian from preventing him from sending out passenger messages, as was also part of his job. So when the lookouts in the crow's nest did spot an iceberg, it was all too late. Even as the ship attempted to veer hard to its port side with its engines reversed, the side of the ship scraped along the iceberg, rupturing at least 5 of its compartments. In total, only 724 of the 2,224 passengers and crew made it off the ship. But within days of the unsinkable ship being sunk, there were already those that wanted to try and find it. Any efforts would be in vain, however, as the technology to seek out a ship and the fears of the treacherous waters meant that it would be lost to history. That is, until 1985, when Robert Ballard led an expedition on a US Naval research ship to try and locate the Titanic. But there was more here than met the eye. In fact, the US Navy had no intention of locating the Titanic. Rather, they were on a secretive Cold War mission to try and find 2 sunken nuclear submarines before the Soviet Union did. The Titanic, as it would turn out, was just the icing on top of the cake, and this is learn something new. Born June 30th, 1942 in Wichita, Kansas, Robert Ballard would grow up in San Diego, California, developing a strong interest in the ocean. After obtaining degrees in chemistry and geology at the University of California in 1965, Ballard joined the Army, serving a 2-year tour before transferring into the Navy. It was at that point he was assigned to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Research Institution, where he would become a full-time marine scientist after completing doctoral degrees in marine geology and geophysics. This led to him helping develop a new type of submersible with a mechanical arm to help manipulate the environment outside the submersible. He would use this to go on many successful expeditions, leading to the discovery of chemiosynthesis, that is, the chemical synthesis of food energy, as he explored previously undiscovered thermal vents in the Galapagos Rift and the plants and animals within. He continued designing new and innovative submersibles, which serve a very similar function to submarines, with the important distinction that submersibles tend to have a much more limited range, whereas a submarine is able to launch and return to its port. A submersible has a mothership that it returns to after a short excursion in the ocean. Ballard's most advanced submersible was called the Argo, named after the mythological ship that was built with the help of the gods in ancient Greek legend, and it was a huge leap in the technology available. The Argo was equipped with high-tech sonar and cameras, and even had a detachable robot nicknamed Jason, after the mythological hero that sailed on the Argo to find the Golden Fleece. But it was shortly after the development of the Argo was finished that the US Navy got in touch with Ballard about a special assignment. You see, on July 9th, 1960, the USS Thresher was launched from Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Maine. This was a nuclear fast attack submarine that the US was in the process of pioneering as a way to hunt down and destroy the Soviet ballistic missile submarines. The Thresher was the lead boat in its class, being approximately 85 meters long and weighing 3,200 tons. It was the most capable and technologically advanced submarine the US had created at that point, being able to reach speeds of 33 knots and depths of 500 meters. But just 3 years after the initial launch, the USS Thresher sank unexpectedly during a test several hundred kilometers off the coast of Cape Cod. Soon, those on land realized the USS Thresher had been lost, along with all 129 crew on board, making it the greatest disaster involving a nuclear submarine in history. President John F. Kennedy had flags flown at half-mast across the country, and a massive expedition was launched to locate the wreck and try and figure out what happened. It was eventually found, and it was determined that a saltwater piping system failed, and the sudden release of pressure caused the sub to plunge deeper than its rating allowed, with the pressure causing it to eventually implode. Though even this explanation was mostly speculation based off testing with the USS Thresher's sister ship, the Tinoza. It was hoped that the disaster would lead to a new era of safety as the Navy launched its sub-safe quality assurance program. But it would only be a few years before yet another disaster struck. On May 21st, 1968, another fast attack submarine, the USS Scorpion, was crossing the Atlantic to return home from NATO anti-submarine exercises, and it spotted Soviet naval activity nearby. They were ordered to go and investigate, but only to observe and report, not engage. After 3 days, it was deemed that there was nothing unusual about the 2 November-class subs and a missile cruiser, and they let the Navy know that it would be back in Norfolk by May 27th. But May 27th came and went, and the submarine didn't arrive. Finally, on June 5th, 2 weeks after it was due back, the submarine and all 99 of her crew were declared missing, presumed lost. Unlike with the Thresher, the Navy really didn't know where the Scorpion had sunk, though they suspected the Soviet submarines it had been investigating were involved. After extensive searching, this too would eventually be found, though the exact circumstances surrounding it having been sunk remained unclear. But one thing was certain: the 2 nuclear submarines packed with weaponry and fuel for the nuclear reactors on board would be a problem. It was widely feared that a radioactive leak could spell an ecological disaster for the areas. And here's where we come back to Ballard. He had been obsessed with finding the Titanic from a young age, and he was far from alone in this pursuit. Many companies had attempted to salvage the Titanic in the past, but all had failed to get near it due to a lack of adequate diving technology. But while Ballard dreamed of using his Argo submersible to find the unsinkable ship, the Navy had other plans, believing that the hunt for the Titanic would be the perfect cover-up story for Ballard to instead find the true causes of why the USS Thresher and Scorpion sank. So the two parties came to an agreement. If Ballard was able to go after the 2 nuclear subs without any Russians following him and determine the state of the nuclear weapons and reactors on board and their effect on the environment, any remaining time could be used in his search for the Titanic, though they truly believed that there would be no time left after such a momentous task. Ballard was sworn to secret about the true nature of the mission, and after some time he was able to locate and photograph the USS Thresher and the Scorpion. All the while, the rest of the world believed he was searching for the Titanic, and when all was said and done, he was left with a mere 12 days to search for the cruise ship. He ended up using the knowledge he had gained from the debris fields of the nuclear subs to survey the area where the Titanic's last distress call was sent out, with heavier objects being closer to the main wreck and lighter objects being further away as the ocean currents would be able to carry them more easily. After a week of searching the area, on September 2nd, 1985, the Titanic came into view. 73 years after it sank, it was finally found. Ballard would later say in an interview that the crew celebrated finally finding it, but quickly fell quiet. As he said, "We realized we were dancing on someone's grave, and we were embarrassed. We made a promise to treat that ship with great respect." Upon his return to the United States, Ballard became a worldwide celebrity, sending a panic through the top ranks of the Navy. As Ballard would later explain in an interview saying, "The Navy never expected me to actually find the Titanic, and so when that happened, they got really nervous because of the publicity. But the people were so focused on the legend of the Titanic, they never connected the dots. It was as good as the mission could have gone." The Navy was satisfied with the data returned. Ballard got to live out his dream and the dream of many by finding the Titanic, and nobody was aware of the true intentions behind the mission until it was declassified in 2018. Thank you for watching Learn Something New. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.